Now, throughout the season so far, the Mets bullpen has pretty much been their main weakness. Some arms have pretty much stuck out more than others, sometimes for the good way and some for the bad way. We look at it from the bad way, I'd say none of these arms have stuck out more than Seth Lugo. Ever since his career year in 2019, it's definitely been quite the roller coaster for this guy. And at this moment, it has gotten really, really bad. And that brings us to ask the question, can the Mets actually trust Seth Lugo anymore?
Two, Vader. Swings and misses, strike three. He struck him out. 5 Met pitchers combined for the second no-hitter in New York Mets history.
So we've talked about this a lot on this channel about how this bullpen could look a lot different next year. You have a lot of pending free agents, including Seth Lugo, guys like Edwin Diaz and Trevor Williams, Adam Ottavino, Trevor May, a lot of these guys who will be pending free agents. And recently, these last few years, Seth Lugo has really looked like he's starting to pitch himself out of a job. His stuff is just not as sharp as he used to. He just seems like a shell of the pitcher that he once was after elbow surgery last year. Overreaction or underreaction? Can the Mets still trust Seth Lugo?
Yeah, it is definitely a major concern. Obviously, the bullpen is becoming the biggest weakness of this team. A top 2 record in the National League, top 5 overall in Major League Baseball. And you look at those other teams, they don't have a glaring weakness, and that being the Mets, it's the bullpen. And Seth Lugo was supposed to be the almighty bridge to Edwin Diaz. The biggest issue with this team, it's not the 9th inning, it is the 8th and the 7th. Lugo is the biggest, I could say this confidently, he's probably the biggest disappointment on this team this year because he was supposed to be a quality, solid 7th, 8th inning guy that you trust when he comes in a game, he can get out of the jam. Has there been some times he's been good? Yeah, but a lot more lately of bad. That's I think we brought it up in the last video about the rage DFAing and the spike deal. I'm getting very close to the point where I am Jeff Wilpon rage DFAing Seth Lugo. If the Mets at the deadline add more relievers, which they damn well should, and you're noticing it's the biggest thing is he does not have consistent command of his curveball. That's his bread and butter. That's what Seth Lugo is. He's not going to blow you away with 100-mile-an-hour gas like an Aroldis Chapman or Edwin Diaz. And there's some days this year where he's had control of it. That's been the best Seth Lugo we've seen all season because we've seen a lot of Seth Lugo aren't an Encarnacion grand slam. You know, last night giving up a bomb to Adam Duvall, leaving the slider up, and it gets tattooed into the second deck. This is more of the Seth Lugo we're seeing. And if Seth isn't going to have command of that curveball, and I think what was it in Cincinnati? The first pitch he throws is a curveball that almost hits the guy in the head. Like, if he doesn't have command of that curveball, he really isn't useful because everything else is secondary pitches and his fastball. Really, that's not what his bread and butter is. And the curveball isn't working. It is a concern, and it is starting to be the point of this guy is going lower and lower in the pecking order.
You look at it from the 2019 standpoint, we trusted Seth Lugo a lot, especially when you saw Edwin Diaz falter a lot in the 9th inning, blow a bunch of games. And now you look at it a few years later, it's basically been turned around to Edwin Diaz pitching at this amazing elite level, unheard of, even better than his 2018 self. And then you have Seth Lugo, who has just been faltering ever since that elite season. Now, I do believe a lot of these problems have kind of been led to back in 2020 when they kind of forced him into the rotation. They had a bunch of injuries in a shortened 60-game season, which I think was probably the dumbest thing they possibly could have done. I do also believe that that probably is what caused him to get elbow surgery. He comes back middle of the season last year. He was a serviceable reliever, but he was not the Seth Lugo that we know and love. And then this year, he's had so many moments where it's forced you to ask the question, are we getting good Seth? Are we getting bad Seth? And that was never really that big of a majority question back in 2018 or back in 2019. We always said, 9 times out of 10, we're going to get good Seth Lugo. And that's the tough thing about him because he's always been a guy who's been known to have good control and command. But now you're really starting to see this different type of angle of him where he does not know where that ball is going. He does not know where that curveball is going. His slider has become completely useless. And all of his secondary stuff is just not there to complement his curveball. And when you're seeing him leave a lot of these pitches inside the zone. He's missing a lot of spots, and it's really been one to cost him, especially recently. He just has not been himself for a long time. And that, I think, is something that a lot of Mets fans have to accept. And to be honest, I think I can go even further and say that he's just not that good anymore.
This consistency of, hey, he's going to come in and he is this, you pray to God you get the good version, because if the bad version comes in, I don't trust him coming into a close game. Again, I'm saying give me Colin Holderman over this guy. Colin Holderman needs to be that seventh inning guy. Where Colin Holderman is pitching in like tighter spots, and like I like that Buck is giving him more and more opportunities. He kind of loves him in that 10th inning. At this point, and especially if this team wants to be a championship contender, you can't have question marks in getting to the bridge to Edwin Diaz. But you got to get the bridge to him. Like he can't pitch the 8th, the 7th, and then the 9th. You only got to pitch the 9th. Obviously, the starting rotation is going to be the biggest factor of what obviously the bullpen needs arms. Seth Lugo, if he's going to be the heart attack or stress-free, there was really no in between with Seth Lugo, and that's kind of how he is now. With the Mets, you would like more consistency and more like settlements to get it to Edwin Diaz.
This was one of the situations where we gave Seth Lugo the benefit of the doubt most of the time. Remember, he was brought up to be a starter, and that was the type of consistency that we saw with most of his pitches and most of his weapons that he has. That's why we've been so patient with him, and that's the reason why we were like, okay, Lugo's going to bounce back. Lugo's going to be fine. He's going to be fine next year. He's going to be in that contract year and he's going to pitch fine. But you're just starting to see this get worse and worse and worse. And I just have absolutely no confidence in this guy whatsoever, even though it's really hard to tell whether he has hit the peak of his career, because he can easily bounce back to what he was. You don't want to sit around waiting for it. And what I'm seeing here is the fly ball rate going through the roof. It's at a career high right now. He's not getting hard contact, and that's the frustrating point about it. But when he's missing really bad. And that's something that I think has really taken the wear down of his elbow. You need your elbow to locate a pitch. I mean, that's something that I think is common knowledge by now with pitchers. Now, there is one thought that I've had, and I mentioned this before. Is it possible that he does need another elbow surgery? Is there something just not right with this guy health-wise, or is this just what he is now?
It's a good thought. I mean, obviously his velocity, he usually was 96, 97. I don't think he's been hitting 97 lately, or at least again, what I've seen, like you said, maybe there is something. Maybe it's a bone. Maybe it could be a Steven Matz situation. Maybe there's some bone shifts. We don't know. I mean, obviously, maybe he's pitching through something. Is he pitching through something? Because obviously it's his walk year. He wants to try to get paid in the offseason, and he doesn't want to have another surgery and not get paid in the offseason. So he's trying to pitch through something, but also it could be hurting him because his production has been so bad. So it is something to think about, that maybe that shoulder is still barking and maybe he's not. Maybe this is a Trevor May, where May was trying to pitch through. He was just that bad before he finally said, yeah, there's something wrong and I got to get it cleaned out. It is something to think about. I would hope he's not doing that, because it's not good for him physically, and it's for sure as hell not good for him financially if he did want to get paid in the offseason as an older reliever. We'll probably never get the answer unless, something happens during the break, or obviously something happens mid-game, but it is something to maybe keep in the back of your mind. It's a good thought.
I think it's come to a point where we've run out of questions. We've run out of answers for this guy, and maybe it's just time to accept that he's just not the pitcher that he used to be. And even though he is a pending free agent, he has been a valuable piece to this team for a while. I mean, I really am still rooting for him, and I really want to see him succeed. He's been one of my favorite relief pitchers to watch for the last few years, but there has to be a point where you start to shorten the leash on Seth Lugo, who has been really struggling this season and just does not look like his 2019 self anymore.
And like all the points you brought up, like it's, obviously homegrown. This just reminds me of a certain player we've had, of a homegrown caliber guy. This just is like the goodbye swan song for like Conforto. Like it's similar. Both guys completely fall off, have one great year and then fall off the face of the earth. And now one's got into a bar fight and is never going to play baseball again. The other one should just get in a bar fight because his shoulder's messed up enough.
Why do I do videos with you again?